Yeah! Thank you! Yeah, no, it's you! No, it's you! Yeah, oh, sorry. Football! Yeah! Alright. No. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, thank you, everyone.
What an ovation.
Well, oh, please don't restart. Oh, yeah, that would have been really awkward. Hey, anyway, hello! Hello! Welcome to the first episode ever of Loudly Mistaken. I'm Brayden Welch. You can call me the Bee, because my takes are sweet as honey, and I got a nice caboose. And joining me today is your other host. He's a legend. The man, the myth, the legend, coming from your uncle's basement. This is the man who once said that the butt fumble was a giant conspiracy spearheaded by Roger Goodell to boost concussion and CTE awareness. It's Gavin Queen. Gavin, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing well. It's been a long time in the making. Glad we can finally do this.
Oh yeah, no, it's been 2 hours in the making. It's been really good. But we're here. We're here. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you.
Another one. Wow.
I got a lot of these. But here's the thing. I'm glad we're here.
Oh yeah, me too.
So, yeah, I just want to tell you guys a little bit about what we're gonna do in here. This is Loudly Mistaken. It was gonna be called, Loudly Telling the Truth, but apparently that's not completely accurate.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, we don't do that. We don't tell the truth here. If we told the truth, this would be a boring show.
Yep.
And you would not tune in. So instead, we're telling not the truth. Anyways, so today we're gonna do some nice little fun hot takes for you. We're gonna do some nice.
Maybe some
overrated players in football. Some very, very nice ones, primarily for fantasy football purposes. Some really great stuff here. But before we start, Gavin, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about how you've lost a lot at fantasy football, and how you are a bandwagon fan in basketball. I mean, really, just tell us about everything.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. With someone else, but. No, I'm actually the only one out of the two of us that's won a championship. So, I won 2 years ago. Brayden doesn't know what that feels like, but it's a good feeling for those of you that have. So, I have the hot takes. Brayden has the cold takes. If you couldn't tell, so listen to me if you want to win any championship.
No comment. Look, I've won leagues. Okay, I've won leagues.
Yeah.
This
the random Yahoo ones where QBs and defenses get drafted in the first round.
Yeah, those are my bread and butter.
Yeah.
No, I every time we talk about this, I feel like, have you ever seen The League? You know that episode where he sees Matthew Berry, and he's like, "Oh, hey, Matthew Berry," and Taco comes up and he's like, "Hey, Matthew Berry. Oh, hey. I won my league a couple of years ago," and Matthew Berry's like, "Oh, when'd you win your league?" And Kevin's just like, I've won a couple of. He's like, "I don't know why you can't remember. You've never won." Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah. Hey.
That's how I feel. So Matthew Berry, if you're listening, I need your help. So help me. Well, that's great. That's great. Gavin, what's your favorite football team again? Are you a Panthers, a Broncos, a Chiefs, a Bucks? I'm trying to remember.
This year we'll go with the Broncos. Let's ride. Russell Wilson's it's Russell Wilson.
Yeah, and Melvin Gordon, you got some exclusive information on Melvin Gordon, right?
I did, yeah. Went to their first preseason game while Melvin had a little bit of a foot injury, and my dad asked him how he's doing. He said, "We gonna be all right." And then about 3 days later, he was back in practice. So he tells the truth.
He
stand
tells
up
the
guy.
Truth. He can't be loudly mistaken.
Exactly. He won't be on this podcast.
Unfortunately, we're gonna be all right. come on. I mean, 2 weeks from now, he'll be all right on the bench. So, anyways, yeah, and I don't need much introduction. Yeah, I'm Brayden. I've won. I've never missed the playoffs.
That is true. I have.
I'm consistently mediocre. It's my specialty. And that's going to continue again unless James Conner and Javonte Williams really show up.
Yeah.
But into that, let's get this going. So let's see. What are we thinking? Let's see.
Who's starting us off first?
Ooh. Yeah, I had a little transition there. Let's see. What about this one? Is this one better? Ooh. Okay. Well, let's start it off. Okay. Now you've seen my list before. I haven't seen yours. So it's gonna be tough for me.
Correct.
But you've seen my list before. Before I say anything, is there any? How many on that list are you like? What are you talking about?
I'm.
Because I didn't send you my notes.
Right.
I only sent you the list.
Right. I think I'm interested to see the Cincinnati wide receivers take because they're pretty highly ranked. So.
So that's where I'm starting,
okay,
actually.
Good.
So let's go with that one. So, overrated, in my opinion, which is correct, 100%.
Right. Always.
I'm never incorrect. I don't get drafting Jamar Chase and T. Higgins that early, right? Like because Jamar Chase right now is ranked. He's going second, third wide receiver off the board.
About third.
He's going before Diggs, Devontae Adams, right? He's going after Kupp and Jefferson, which we'll get to Kupp later. But to me, it doesn't make sense when you're sitting there, especially with T. Higgins, and I'll get to that in a minute because I have a whole thing around him. But with Jamar Chase, look at his stats, right? So if you bring up Jamar Chase, he had a great season last year. I'm not gonna say he didn't have a great season. He had a fantastic season. Yeah. However, he was buoyed by an even better playoff, right? Because he's sitting there and they just went off in the playoffs. And what it reminded me, I know they had a much better regular season, which actually makes it a little bit scarier, but it reminds me of the Falcons back in 2016, 2017.
Matt Ryan won MVP?
Matt Ryan won MVP.
I think that's
and you had the Falcons, I think it's like 2016, 2017. Or 20...
I thought it was 2015, but something like that, yeah.
But you had Matt Ryan win the MVP that year. You have Julio Jones just go completely off. And if you bring up the rankings, which I did earlier today, Julio Jones was ranked number 6 by Yahoo going into that season, and Devontae Freeman was ranked number 12. Now, if you go to their stats, okay, Julio Jones that following season, he had, I believe it was 1,300 yards. That's a lot of yards. He played all the games, but that's the year he had 4 touchdowns. Comparatively, Devontae Freeman was under 1,000 rushing yards the following season. Okay? And you look at that, teams who lose the Super Bowl historically do bad. I mean, they historically go through a slump. You look at guys like even Burrow last year, and we can go with the whole Cincinnati offense, honestly. You look at guys like Burrow, and he was extremely inconsistent. Last year, he had the best, the QB1, against top 12 matchups. Anything that was easy, he got it. He was the QB 17 against non-top 12 matchups. Okay? So you're looking at a guy who excelled on an easy schedule, propelled by a great playoff. I mean, these guys now are looking... I mean, they had this huge touchdown percentage. Now he's going to see this touchdown regression. And you look that in the last 8 years... the quarterback that lost the Super Bowl, 7 of them regressed, and 5 of them regressed by over 20% in their points.
Wow.
So if you're going to say that Joe Burrow is going to be not exactly the Joe Burrow we saw last year, then you can't tell me that Jamar Chase is going to be a top 3 wide receiver. And then you can't tell me that T. Higgins is going to be a top 20 wide receiver when he's not even the best receiver on his team, which is arguable. Some people are going to come up and say that T. Higgins is amazing. But if he's not the best wide receiver on his team, you can't tell me that you can draft him as a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. In my opinion, not counting health, both of them need to be lowered at least 8 to 10 spots. And I'm saying that because I don't think Cincinnati is going to implode. I think that's a tough division with tough defenses. I mean, Cleveland's a train wreck, but their defense looks good. Baltimore's defense is always great. Pittsburgh's defense is one of the best in the league, in my opinion. I mean, you're seeing tough defenses that they're seeing all throughout the season. You're going to see a regression from Joe Burrow. I just think that the entire Cincinnati wide receiver core is being way overvalued right now, and mostly propelled by a playoff run.
Wow. You started off hot, for sure. I think T. Higgins is an above-average wide receiver 2. Not in fantasy, but like on a team, a wide receiver 2 above average. And so I have also always struggled with like drafting T. Higgins as a top 12 wide receiver. I think that's very overvalued because there's just not enough targets to go around for that offense, especially when you take into account Joe Mixon. But it's tough for me not to see some positives from Jamar Chase after a crazy rookie year. I mean, the dude's he's too good not to finish, in my opinion, as top 5. So where do you have him ranked?
Okay, so I have to put him underneath guys like, obviously he's underneath Jefferson, in my opinion. He's underneath, he's even, despite what I'm going to say later, he's underneath Cup. He's underneath Devontae Adams, who I think is going to have a huge season. In fact, I actually think that Devontae Adams is going to be the wide receiver 1.
Wow, overall?
At the end of it all, I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1.
I think that Derek Carr connection.
You can use this clip. You can use this clip in like 10 weeks when he's, has 400 yards or something. But I think, Devontae Adams, I think he's going to be behind Stephon Diggs, even though, and I love Diggs, I think he's always overpriced. I think, everyone tries to get a part of that offense. You got to put Jamar Chase even below guys like Mike Evans, who I don't love, but I think you got to put him below there. I think you definitely got to put him below CeeDee, below Debo.
Wow.
Below Tyreek. I say that Jamar Chase is probably below Michael Pittman. I think Jamar Chase is in the Keenan Allen range. So like wide receiver 9, wide receiver 10.
Okay. So you have.
I think he's way lower than he should. I think he's way. I mean, he's one of the, in my opinion, just most overvalued players. And I'm gonna come back to bite that. I know I am, and I know he'll have like a 140-yard game the first week or something.
Yeah.
But to me, especially if you believe in T. Higgins, right, as a talent, if you believe in T. Higgins as a talent, then you can't value Jamar Chase that high.
Right.
Right? It's kind of, you look at the Jefferson-Thielen split. I mean, Thielen's amazing, and he's great, white chocolate, bro. Like, that guy's awesome.
Sir.
But, like, you look at his stats since Jefferson really started ascending, and they've fallen down. His touchdowns have gone up, but he didn't reach 1,000 yards last year.
Right.
Right? And yes,
700. Was he like 750?
I think it was 900, but he had injury.
Yeah.
Like, but still, it's that thing of you're not going to see, if you think T. Higgins is really, which right now in this Yahoo ranking, he's the wide receiver. He's right below Debo, right above DJ Moore,
somewhere
above Keenan Allen, right? So in Yahoo, he's the overall 27th ranked player, T. Higgins. If you're ranking him that high, that offense, unless you expect Joe Burrow to throw 450 yards a game, that offense can't sustain it.
Right. That's the thing. I think consistency is going to be a problem for both of those receivers. Like last year, I mean, Jamar Chase had games where he had 200 yards, and then next week he had 50, 60 yards, and T. Higgins was the one who was getting over 100 yards. So I think there will be some consistency issues, but Jamar Chase is one of the few wide receivers that I think can finish as the wide receiver 1 overall. So.
Nope. Nope.
Here we go. The first.
We'll see. We'll put it on the. I'll have a board next time. We'll put it on the board.
Yeah, we need to.
Gavin says wide receiver. Oh wait. So do you think he'll be like the wide receiver 1, or is that? Are you saying that he'll be the wide receiver 1?
No, I don't project him to be the wide receiver 1, but I think he has, just with that offense, Joe Burrow, and that connection that they had last year, I think he has the capability to finish wide receiver 1 overall, which I don't think a lot of people do.
So where does he end? Where do you think he ends?
Where do I think he ends?
Yeah.
I think he's still in the top 5 wide receiver range by the end of the year.
Who's he below?
Obviously Kupp, Jefferson. I think depending on Chris Godwin coming back and how well Julio Jones can bounce back, you throw Mike Evans in there. I think also probably Devontae Adams with his target share. I think he's going to get at least 20% target share with Derek Carr. And so
do you have him above? Diggs?
Man, that's tough. Depending on how many snaps he plays with the Gabriel Davis hype, we'll see.
I almost put him on my list, but I like him too much.
I do too, man. He's a wild card for sure. But if he can, he's their best blocker apparently. So if he can play 85-90% of the snaps.
And Sanders and Beasley are out, so it's
right. Yep, it's a lot of targets that are missing. So
a lot of end zone targets too.
That's true. He's a big body. You love that.
Of course, watch them sign like Odell.
Oh yeah, I'm already thinking about that.
That's a Buffalo move right there. Is to just get Odell in there and not
I mean, Buffalo's
like the Rams, like the AFC version of the Rams, where they're just like, why not?
Right. Yeah, I think Von Miller and Odell are already talking, so we'll see.
All right, so we've gotten my first one off the list.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't blow up on me, so I'll take it. I'll take. I think I made good points.
yeah, you did. I'm 50% on board with the T. Higgins hype, but man, Jamar Chase, that talent is just, I think it's too good. So
I know I have a lot of people, whoever's listening right now, they're cursing me out for that. Like, it's not a popular take.
I think wide receiver 3 is very high, and I see how he could fall off just with that. The T. Higgins obviously being, arguably good enough to be a wide receiver 1 on a team. And then depending on how they use Joe Mixon this year as well. So I can see it.
Well, and you can throw in, I almost made just a whole, well, I did underneath. I put a little, just see all Cincy players to me. I love what they did in the playoffs, but it's just, you see that regression every year from the team that got second. I mean, even Pat Mahomes wasn't immune. You know what I'm saying? It's so if you're sitting there, unless you think that Joe Burrow is like Tom Brady, he's just there's going to be that regression, and that's going to hit the whole offense.
I agree.
So right. Hit me with your first one, man.
So should we go with the super hot take, or start it off a little simmer?
Hit me with the hot one.
All right. So, my first player is none other than Saquon Barkley. Yep. Yeah. I don't know if you were predicting that, but he is one of my favorite players, as you know, and as I'm sure all the viewers and listeners will come to find out. But he's coming off the board as the RB11 this year, and although I love the talent, I love the player, I still think there's too many risks involved with this offense. He is 1 year removed from that ACL injury, which is nice, and I know there's a lot of a lot of stuff coming out of camp saying he's fully back and he's going to be the guy and get the bulk of the carries. But I've sadly lost hope in Danny Dimes, which hurts my soul. But I don't think he's the franchise quarterback for this team. I think that hurts Saquon. And also, I'm not predicting this team to score many points. So I think Saquon's going to have to get most of his fantasy value from receiving work late in the game and garbage time. And I don't think they're going to be scoring very many touchdowns. So draft him as the RB11 going in the mid-second round, I think is just a little bit overvalued.
So does this change, and we'll get to how it actually stands in a minute, because I have some questions. Gosh. But does this change if Jimmy G gets traded there week 3?
That's a good question. I think, I think I would probably move him up a little bit. I still think he is one of those players that has the capability to be the RB1 because we've seen him in his rookie year go off and we've seen the talent from him. And I expect this Giants offensive line to be better than it was last year, but I don't think Danny Dimes can move the ball, move the offense, and consistently produce. So,
well, I will say, and Saquon was on I had a list of 10, and Saquon was number 7, and so I thought about it.
Yeah.
To me, well, and you also look at Daniel Jones's. The one thing that he can do that no one else can do. I put quotes around that. But the one thing that he's actually surprisingly good at is rushing.
Right.
And so to me it's
and fumbling or tripping before the end zone.
Exactly. He can run 7 yards. If he gets to that 8, it's he's finding speed bumps on the highway type of thing, right?
Where he's just
he's tripping over himself. But if you get him down on the goal line, to me he turns all of a sudden into this weird. He thinks he's Josh Allen. He's not, and he thinks he's Josh Allen, and so he just rushes forward. So I see what you're saying. So. Not at RB11. Where does he end up then?
I think he ends up in the RB15 range.
Boo! RB3. RB3.
No, there's no way he's in the RB3. No, I think he has one of the safest floors now. I mean, everybody's worried about the injury concerns, but he tore his ACL, which a lot of players do, and then last year he had that unfortunate ankle roll on the Cowboys player that, I mean, it's just a fluke accident. He should be fully healed and recovered like everybody's been saying out of training camp, and so I think he has a safe floor just because he's going to get the majority of the carries in the bulk, and he's also one of those players that can get 80 targets a year, which is pretty rare for running backs. So I think he's in the RB2 range. I just don't see him right now as a consistent RB1 being drafted in the middle of the second round. I think that's way too high, way too early. I think middle of the third, back end of the third round is about the range that he should be in.
Maybe. It just...
Hey, it hurts me too. It hurts.
Well, I like him. I think he's a great talent. But to me it's... And almost, and I could get in trouble for this one too. To me it's almost what... If Mike Tomlin wasn't in Pittsburgh, it's almost like what Najee Harris would be headed towards, which is just a crappy offensive line, a weird amalgamation of supporting cast. I love Deontay Johnson. I love Chase Claypool.
We'll talk about one of them in a little bit.
Oh, no. I actually think they have a great... If they didn't have Tomlin, I'd be a little worried. I actually think that team is invincible at this point.
They've never had a losing season with Tomlin, so I'm sure they're going to win, 8 to 10 games like always.
Well, and if you can, if you can ride Ben Roethlisberger's geriatric arm, then you can do anything. It's it literally. I mean, it was kind of it was as if Ben Roethlisberger had literally snapped, using the Thanos, the Infinity Gauntlet, and then he was standing like that, the whole time, the Hulk, right? When he used it, it was literally that. but he was using that arm to throw too. I don't. The fact that Deontay Johnson even did that well with Ben Roethlisberger, I'm not afraid of, even if they throw out Mitch Trubisky. The only thing I'd be worried about Mitch Trubisky, which I don't even think he's going to start, but the only thing I'd be worried about Mitch Trubisky is if he ran into the wrong end zone because he just got confused, right? That's just who Mitch Trubisky is. So
we'll save that for later because we'll have to bring that up soon.
All right. Well, I'll jump on my next one. You talked about him already.
Before you do, where do you have Saquon ranked or finishing?
I almost go even lower. I think he's like an RB20.
Wow.
To me, I don't have faith in that. I love Brian. Oh wait, I got yelled at the other day because I said Dabble. Is it Dabble or Dable?
I think it's Dable.
Okay, well, I think he's awesome. I actually think that Buffalo could see a slight regression in the offense because he's not there, right? I think he's great. I actually really like Joe Judge as a person. As a coach, he's a little more. But he's definitely an upgrade. I just don't have faith in that offense, and I could see them or that defense. I could see them get down and be forced to throw, or get in the point where they literally start the season 2-6, and you're sitting there reaching your fantasy playoffs, and they've shut down Saquon because there's nothing to play for.
Yeah, it's a possibility. It's always a worry.
To me, it's you want to have those guys that are going to be contending, because you want to have them playing meaningful minutes in those last games when you need them most.
Yeah. So
if you're sitting there and Saquon's just shut down because they have yet another losing season and trying to get a quarterback this offseason, it's useless to me.
Is Saquon playing for a contract this year? I believe this is his last year on his deal.
I think it is, because they didn't give him an extension, right?
No, I don't think so. So that could be... He might be playing late into the season for that contract, but I agree. I think 20 is a little bit low, but in the 15 to 20 range is pretty close and pretty tight. So
yeah, I think it's either his fifth year or his fourth year. I think this might be, he hits free agency in 2023. So yeah, that's his last year. Whew. All right, so I'm actually gonna jump around.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna jump around. I'll come back to a guy that we talked about.
Okay.
Because, gosh, I hate him. All right, I don't hate him. Well, you know what? I'll talk about him right now. All right. So, I love Cooper Kupp. I think he's amazing, and I think Allen Robinson's frustrating. And to me, it's the same thing with the T. Higgins hype, where I'm like, dude, Odell was great at the end of the year, but even then, we wouldn't, at the beginning of last year, we wouldn't be drafting Odell in the 4th round and 5th round of drafts, right?
Right.
And Allen Robinson's going so high, and everyone's like, yeah, he's going to be great. I mean, Robert Woods last year, as a wide receiver 2 in that offense, had 1 game of 150 yards, and besides that, had 8 games of 400 yards. Right, with I believe 4 touchdowns. So it's he's averaging 50 yards a game, half a touchdown a game. To me, if you're drafting that high, that's not going to cut it. Right. And I know that Robert Woods is not Allen Robinson and vice versa, but we just saw Allen Robinson come off a terrible year, which I don't think is his fault. But you're putting too much risk into drafting him that high, especially, and this is why I think Kupp is getting drafted too high with a little asterisk. Okay, so I put Kupp up there. I put Allen Robinson up there because of the reports that are coming out of Rams camp. Matthew Stafford is getting the Ben Roethlisberger treatment. His arm is literally falling off. I mean, it's like Toy Story, and Woody got the rip in his arm, and it's literally just falling off slowly, and they don't have the guy to stitch it up. They're trying, but over and over, it's just falling off. So, to me, if Matthew Stafford can stay healthy, Cooper Kupp's going to be wide receiver 1 or 2, top 2, no questions asked.
Yep.
But that's a big if. If you're drafting, I have a friend who just finished his draft, and he had the 2nd overall pick, and it was JT Cooper Kupp. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, if you're drafting 2nd overall, either grab it, if you're going to really taken that injury risk. I know Cooper Kupp doesn't have the injury risk, but if you're going to take an injury risk, which you have to do because their backup quarterback is Wolford, right?
So yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Right, I think it is.
To me, it's like their backup quarterback is Wolford, Wofford, whatever, and so you're sitting there. You gotta at that point you just take CMC because you're taking in an injury risk anyways, right? At least in that case, he has multiple years of a proven track record. Of course, he has multiple years of a proven injury. But it's that whole thing of Cooper Kupp is so dependent on Matthew Stafford, which we saw with Jared Goff. He was okay with Jared Goff.
Yeah.
He was good. But he was the wide receiver 2 with Jared Goff, and Robert Woods was actually the wide receiver 1 at that time. Right? If you put in Matthew Stafford with a noodle arm, or if Matthew Stafford can't even get on the field, to me, that's way too much risk. Take Justin Jefferson. Take Devontae Adams. Take, in my opinion, even take as much as I think that Tua is about as polarizing as Tony Romo. It's like, it's that thing of take Tyreek Hill. I would even take, if you're at this point, I would have to take Kupp over Tyreek Hill just solely out of value if I could trade him for just giant treasure trove, because there's no, until you can prove to me that Matthew Stafford can stay healthy during the regular season this year, there's no chance that I'm touching him that early. Now, granted, I think that the talent's there, and I think that he should. I mean, honestly, in a perfect season, he's up there with the 101, 102 range. Because it's so hard to duplicate or to replicate a RB1 season that it's bound to that Jonathan Taylor, is probably not going to be the RB1 next year.
Yeah, he's got
just odds are
to repeat something like that. So
yeah, odds are he's not going to be. You have in my opinion, you have a better chance that Cooper Kupp's going to be better if Matthew Stafford was fully healthy. You can't convince me that he is.
Right.
So I say that's not my hottest take today because it's a little tentative.
Yeah. Based on injury.
Yeah.
I agree. I think if Matthew Stafford's fully healthy, you can take Kupp as high as the 102, 103, and so.
But that if.
Exactly.
It's the if for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
there's nothing good coming out of camp saying that Matthew Stafford's ready to go. Nothing saying he's throwing with no problems with his arm. So I agree. I think you have to take a running back, especially with this season. The amount of workhorse running backs is so much lower than last year, and you got to get those guys early. So I think you jump on running back, and then, like you said, second round. Go with Diggs, go with Adams, someone that you know is going to get a good target share, isn't having any problems coming out of camp. So, I agree.
I turned down, it's a whole thing. Running backs are so thin this year. I turned down a trade today that was so in our league, we have, we can trade future draft picks and all that. I turned down Terry McLaurin and a pretty sizable upgrade in the draft next year for James Conner. I was sitting there and I was like, I really need help at wide receiver, but man, I can't give up a running back.
Right, yeah, especially not this year.
Running back is so thin right now. And, because even with James Conner, I'm not guaranteed that he's going to be a 3-down back. But, and he's so touchdown dependent. He's never had 1,000 yards rushing. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Because comparatively, it's so hard to get a 3-down back. Even a guy that's on the first 2 downs, it falls out of favor just like that. I'm looking at Antonio Gibson, right? Which they announced today on August 25th. I forgot I didn't say the date. On August 25th, that he's the starting kick returner. So here we go.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Crazy.
So
crazy offseason.
So who's your second guy?
My second guy, similar to Saquon last year, with what people are saying, is J.K. Dobbins. He's another player that I like from a talent perspective. His rookie year, he went off at the back half of the year and won a lot of people leagues. But coming off an ACL, man, I've been burned too many times, especially with Saquon last year. They're just not the same the first year coming off that ACL. He's coming off the boards around RB24, which is still an RB2, and I think that's way too high. I'd rather take somebody with a safer floor, similar to the Cup situation. I know Cup's not the injured one. We've talked about that, but why would you take a guy that's coming off an injury when you can take someone around the similar range that you know is going to have the same amount of value that's actually going to be on the field with no injury history? And so I think, especially with reports coming out with Mike Davis, he might be starting week 1 and getting a majority of the carries. The big thing on JK was, Gus Edwards is there and he's going to take some of the bulk. He might take goal line carries, and that was the worry. And now Gus Edwards on the pup. But here's Mike Mike Davis, maybe being the RB1 for the Ravens for the foreseeable future until J.K. Dobbins can actually get healthy. And so I think that caps a lot of his ceiling with Mike Davis. And it's tough to see him returning that RB2 value for me.
Well, and did you hear the rumor today that they're interested in Kenyon Drake?
I didn't see that. Just adding
that came out today. Yeah, well, and as soon as you said J.K. Dobbins, I was like, oh, that's perfect. I should have thrown that one in there. Because you look at the team last year, which, by the way, there's a whole thing. I definitely recommend listening to the Late Round podcast. But there's this whole thing that I can't remember when, but he goes over Ravens running backs. And Ravens running backs with Lamar Jackson. Running backs with a rushing quarterback in general do not do well.
Yeah,
that's why
Miles Sanders.
Stay away from Philly.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that was
my exactly. Right. So it's that kind of thing of you sit there and you also saw how they built the team last year. You have guys. I pulled it up. You have guys on free agency right now. David Johnson, he's 30, so, maybe not. But Latavius Murray, he's 32. Devontae Freeman's 30. You had guys that they brought in last year that are old. They like their veterans because they know they can just run them into the ground and then cut them.
Yep.
And because they're not going for 100 yards, right? The guy who was really going for 100 yards is Lamar Jackson. And so you're sitting there and it's like, if they even think for an instant that J.K. Dobbins isn't fully healthy, they'll bring in a vet and they'll just split time. I brought up. So I want to get your take on where you think he actually should be.
Yeah.
But I brought up to my friend who actually just drafted J.K. Dobbins. I was like, you realize last year what they were talking about with Gus Edwards is that he hadn't even beat him out yet. That was the thing. They were saying it was a 50-50 split before all of the injuries happened. And so...
Hold on one second.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, he's back! Right. So, he hadn't even beat him out last year. And so, I think, I think J.K. Dobbins is a stud, but it is that thing of, you got to cook in the wrist, and you got to cook in the team itself.
Right.
So, where do you see him landed?
I think just outside of the RB2 range, around RB 26, 28, just depending on how much work they give him. If reports came out that, he's looking good, he's fully healthy, he's ready to go, we're getting him a full workload, obviously I would stat him more as a mid to high end RB2. But the fact that they're talking about Mike Davis, who's arguably washed up after last year, when Cordell Patterson, 28, 29-year-old Cordell Patterson's taken over and being the RB1 and wide receiver 1 for that team, and Mike Davis is rushing for 3 yards per carry. If they're looking at him rather than, a young J.K. Dobbins who's up and coming and should be in his prime very soon, I just think there's too many red flags with J.K. this year. I'm happy to take him next year. I think he's going to blow up next year, but this year there's just too many risks involved.
I love it. So, I'm skipping my order now. Now I'm getting to the one that I'm very passionate
about. Oh boy, here we go.
So, there has been... I got to play something for you for that second. This is what's happening right now, okay? Do you know what that sound is? That's disrespect, okay?
Oh.
There is some blatant disrespect. I named him earlier, but I'm going to bring him up. There's some blatant disrespect towards James Conner in all of the drafts, okay? I want to put out. Now, I brought up, yes, he's touchdown dependent. Yes, he's never had over 1,000 yards rushing, and yes, he has a terrible injury history. All of those things against him. However, he's in a fantastic offense. Kyler, they're not rushing him near the end zone anymore because they want to keep him healthy.
Yep.
DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for the first 6 weeks. And they brought in, all they did to boost it is they drafted a tight end and they brought in good old Hollywood Brown, which I think is great. I think Hollywood is great. But I don't think, they didn't do much at running back. They added Williams, right? And they did not do much, and yet he's getting absolutely disrespected.
Yeah.
On the other side, okay? So I just remember everything that I listed, okay? Extensive injury history, okay? Never rushed over 1,000 yards. Touchdown dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Had one, honestly, really disappointing career until last year. Like he had a decent year.
Yeah,
last year was his best year.
Yeah, when Lev helped out.
He had a decent. Yeah, a decent year. Then last year was his career year, right? They just signed him to a contract. Okay, now if I tell you about another running back, decent career, had one mad year, pretty good year. Last year was his career year. Went to free agency, signed an extension. Has an extensive injury history. This one has rushed over 1,000 yards, I believe. I haven't done the complete research on him on that level, but has rushed over 1,000 yards at one point. But, and we'll go into the something else because there's an article I'm gonna bring up. I think that if you're gonna disrespect James Conner and draft him in like the 4th or 5th round, Leonard Fournette belongs right next to him. And not only that, James Conner has had amazing. Oh, let me go a minute. James Conner has had amazing talks from camp, and Leonard Fournette came in looking like he had eaten a 4-year-old child. I mean, the dude was severely overweight, and I know that they say that he's back in shape now, but you look at it. I mean, he looks like me, and I am, I'm not tubby, but I'm a little tubby. So it's that whole thing of Leonard Fournette. If you're going to disrespect James Conner, you need to put Leonard Fournette in the same exact place because, in my opinion, they're on the same level. They're on the same risk, right? Because he's going into an offense that Tom Brady is amazing, but it has so many weapons, and they just drafted a running back, and you're looking at him, and he has had one great season. Every other season before that with the Jaguars, meh. Okay, so now let's jump onto another part. With those seasons with the Jaguars, he got a lot of touches. I mean, he was averaging, I believe it was like 3.7 yards per carry, but he got over 1,000 yards because they had so many carries.
Yeah, similar to Najee Harris last year.
Yeah. And so, there is a number. So, there's an article dating back to 2012 talking about the fall of LaDainian Tomlinson.
Uh-oh.
That's right. The fall of LaDainian Tomlinson. That's how old and how long-standing this has been because it's still going on. Talking about 370 carries and age 27 or older. So there's a statistic, right, that if you look at it, the running backs that have the a top 5 finish, right, age-wise, dating back, I believe, 1 minute, here we go. Dating back, no, sorry, my bad. RB1 finish. Dating back to 2000, okay. At age 21, 9.4% of running backs, okay? At age 22, 5.5. Age 23, 7.0. Age 24, 9.1. Age 25, 7.8. Age 26, the highest one, at 9.6%. Age 27, 2.9%. So I'll say that again. At age 26, 9.6%. Age 27, 2.9%.
Finishing as the RB1 overall, and RB1.
Finishing as an RB1.
Oh, wow.
As an RB1. So you sit there, and you look, and of course, that's a little bit of, like, you sit there and you look at those age 27 guys, and who are we talking about right now? Okay? We're talking about James Conner is 27 years old. However, he didn't get a lot of touches until later in his career at Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at Lenny that was drafted in the first round that's been given touches nonstop.
And in college as well. So, he had a lot of tread.
And in college as well. So you're looking at this guy that has just so much tread on the tires, is playing in an offense that has so many mouths to feed. Yep. And they just drafted a running back. Leonard Fournette, honestly, to me, it doesn't make sense. Because also, and I'll just throw this out there for the people listening, Derrick Henry, 28 years old. Austin Eckler, 27 years old. Dalvin Cook, 27 years old. Alvin Kamara, 27 years old.
Wow.
Aaron Jones, 27 years old. Lenny, 27. Connor, 27. Zeke, 27. Kareem Hunt, 27. Whereas pure stats say that 26 is that peak year, just for people looking out, Joe Mixon, 26. Nick Chubb, 26. Christian McCaffrey, 26. Chase Edmonds, 26, which he's good. To me, Mostert in that offense, it's going to be a weird split.
Yeah, he's getting a lot of hype this year.
And Penny, 26. So if you look at it, right, and that's pure stats. Of course, throw the stats away because, that's how fantasy football goes, right? Yeah. People always just go against it. But Leonard Fournette is getting drafted as, I believe, the RB12. Let me make sure that I'm telling you the truth here. Let's go with, let me pull this up real quick.
I was seeing it was a little bit higher, but it might be around there.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11. RB11. Yeah. Right in between Saquon Barkley and Nick Chubb. Which you already talked about Saquon, but that's above guys like Javonte, which I don't love because of the Melvin Gordon situation. But that's above guys like Javonte. That's above guys like Kamara that I talked about already. Zeke that I talked about. I mean, he's getting in. That's when you start getting the fall off in running backs.
Yep.
But he's getting drafted in actual drafts so much higher. I mean, he's getting drafted with guys like DeAndre Swift, with guys like Aaron Jones, with guys like Joe Mixon.
And even ahead of them sometimes.
And to me, that just doesn't make sense. If you're going to do that, the comparison in this ranking system is an overall player 19 in Leonard Fournette and an overall player 33 in James Conner. To me, they should be somewhat identical.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, I'd put Leonard Fournette down in the 4th round. I'd put Leonard Fournette down in the back end of the 3rd, top of the 4th. Don't touch him in the 2nd.
Where would you have him ranked overall as an RB?
Overall, probably RB 16, 17.
Okay.
And that's with risk cooked in as well. To me, he has the risk of reaching week 8 and being gone. Just gone.
Sure.
Absolutely just worthless to your team. And so to me, it's pure stats. 27 is a dangerous age, especially when they have so much tread on the tires. Yeah. He has so much tread.
I'm not predicting him to be the rushing leader, average 4 yards per carry this year by any means. Especially, my biggest concern is that offensive line. I mean, Jensen came back for Tom. He's already out for the season. They had another center go down. I think they had right guard or left guard, some other lineman go down. And I know Tom Brady's back, but he kind of just disappeared for a few weeks and no one really knew what was going on or if he was coming back. So, I mean, right now he's there and he's ready to play. So it's the same thing for Mike Evans as well. If Tom's not there, these guys are basically worthless. I think Evans has more value than Lenny does, but without Tom Brady, I don't think Leonard Fournette is even an RB2. So
wow.
I mean, I think Tom is the reason why Leonard Fournette is good. As we've seen in New England, he makes players around him better. And I thought Ronald Jones was a better running back last year, just running the ball. And Tom Brady said, I trust Leonard Fournette more. And Leonard Fournette had, I don't remember how many targets and catches last year, but I think that gives him a solid floor, which I think he'll get with Chris Godwin being out, depending on how long he's out again. Like we talked about before, there are a lot of mouths to feed, but I think Tom trusts Leonard Fournette. He's going to put the ball in his hands, and I think if Leonard Fournette can secure goal line work, he'll still be solid for fantasy. But I can see where he falls off, and he's averaging, 3.2 yards per carry, something like that, and he's struggling. So.
Ooh. Do you think he does? Do you think he pulls an Antonio Brown?
Leonard Fournette.
It's just to me, they're the same type of player. They're the same type of.
If Fontez Perfect was still in the league and he took a few hits, I think there's a possibility. But I think Lenny's fine this year.
Ah man. Oh wait, maybe next year.
Yeah, maybe next year. Yeah.
All right. So who's your? I think we're on to 3.
Number 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's your third?
I'll go with my first and only wide receiver on this list, who you somewhat brought up already. Pittsburgh Steeler wide receiver Deontay Johnson.
Don't do it. No, don't do it. Okay.
No.
We might get heated here.
Yeah, we might. One of my good friends is a Steelers fan, so he's always talking about the Steelers and hyping them up, and I just don't see it, honestly. He's going off the board as the wide receiver 16 right now, which is ADP ahead of guys like Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think have a higher floor and higher upside. And I just don't understand why you would draft Deontay Johnson above any of these guys. Wide receiver 16, man, that just blows my mind. I know he is consistent in his targets, and even though his hands are terrible, he might have the worst hands in all of the NFL. He still somehow gets those targets. And you talked about Big Ben with his arm falling off, which I agree with. But I still think he leads an offense better than Mitch Trubisky does, who you don't even project to be the starter week 1, which is also another crazy story. But I personally think Mitch gives him a safer floor than Kenny Pickett does. When Kenny comes in, which I probably think is around week 4 to week 6. There's no way he's a week 1 starter, but week 4 to week 6, I think Kenny takes over, and by that time, who knows who the wide receiver 1 is for that team. I mean, they still have Claypool. George Pickens is getting maybe the most hype out of everybody this offseason, which especially for rookies. I think he might be the favorite for offensive rookie of the year right now. He's shown out a little bit, but I think when Kenny Pickett takes over, he already has shown that he likes to spray it around a little bit and keep everybody involved. And so I think the only reason why Deontay has been so good in the past is he's been one of those target hogs, getting 130 targets a year, and I don't see that happening here, especially with his offense. I don't think they're going to be scoring as many points, similar to the Giants' offense. I mean, we're not talking about any Giants receivers, so the fact that Deontay Johnson is a wide receiver 16 right now, just it blows my mind, man. So, yeah.
You're killing it. You're killing it. Well, wait, so first of all, I just want to point out there, okay, to me, so you mentioned Pickens. Pickens, you know who had the most hype going out of preseason last year?
James Washington?
No. Wide receiver-wise for rookies.
Oh, for rookies. Most hype for rookies. I mean, I know Jamar Chase had the catching issue, so it wasn't him.
Yeah, so it wasn't him. It was Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, everyone was raving about him. And he did well at the end of the season.
Yeah.
But we got into the regular season, and he just fell. I mean, I think that first game, he literally had one catch for like -4 yards. I think he got negative. Like, to me, which I was, of course, a victim to that because I started.
I was wondering who it was.
I was a victim to the hype.
No wonder you're
and it's that thing that Pickens is to me, a version of that where, like, at the end of the season, which I think Pittsburgh's going to make the playoffs, and when they're making a playoff push, he will start to come up. But he is still the third best option on that offense, wide receiver wise.
Wow.
If not fourth.
Wow.
Where you have, in my opinion, you have Freiermuth, who is just an end zone beast.
Yeah, I forgot to mention
right.
that.
So
yeah.
So you have him, and to me, what you like, I don't know how much Steelers preseason you've watched, but Deontay. So there was this play that it got called back on a penalty, anyways. But there was this play where Deontay goes in and just zooms past the guy, catches a touchdown, boom, and then it was like some holding like right at the end.
Was that when Kenny was in?
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, they just gave him a huge contract.
That's true. That's true.
There is no one that I've ever seen, besides maybe Michael Thomas, that can just command so many targets and get just fed.
Yeah.
And it's not looking like that's going to be any different.
I think last year, like you said, Big Ben kind of had to feed him. Chase Claypool's not one of those separation guys, and they didn't really have anybody other than him. And so, man, I'm just worried.
And what's the difference? What's the difference?
I think Mitch.
They don't have that now.
Mitch is even worse.
They don't have that.
Mitch is worse. I think Mitch is going to throw a lot more picks. I'm going to be able to run the ball.
Yeah, exactly. Mitch will throw 2 picks, and they'll throw in Pickens game 1. Like, that's it. That's how it's going to go.
Man, I think Kenny Pickett, he's going to be able to throw the ball downfield too, which is another thing. They couldn't throw the ball downfield past 10 yards last year. That's Claypool's game.
Deontay's a speed guy.
He is.
He has speed too.
He's not a red zone guy. I'm just worried.
No. You gotta understand. I have like Deontay like wide receiver 10, wide receiver 11.
Wow. How many touchdowns are you? Or what's his stat line for?
Oh, he'll have at least he'll have double digits. He'll have
double digit touchdowns. All right, we got to put that on the board. We got to put that on the board.
1,200, at least 1,200 yards, at least 10 touchdowns.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm thinking, to me, he's on pace not because of quarterback play, but because of scheming. He's on pace with like Diggs.
Man, that might be your first cold take of the year. We will see. We'll see.
So we are polar opposites on this one because I think he's getting underdrafted.
Wow. That's wild. All right, we'll see. Week 1. So you would rather have Kenny as the starter than Mitch? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%. To me, I had faith in Mitch, and then just preseason he's been awful.
Yeah, he's been terrible.
He's still Mitch Trubisky.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
I don't know what.
So where do you have Deontay then?
Man, it's tough. He's one of those guys that it's just he's so difficult to project. I see the path.
Where do you have him around? Who do you have him around? I'll throw a name out. Former Steeler, Juju.
That's
better.
Exactly where I was thinking. Actually, I was thinking around the Juju. A lot of question marks. I think Juju's in a better.
Who's better, Gabe Davis or him?
Man.
Are you gonna go with a wide receiver 2 on his own team?
I mean, that Buffalo offense is a lot better.
Oh, you're killing me.
And unlike you, I don't have Deontay Johnson projected double-digit touchdowns, and I do think Gabe Davis finishes with double-digit touchdowns. So,
unbelievable.
Yep, we will see.
Rashad Bateman, better or worse?
I think that's where it's close. We'll talk about somebody else on the Ravens soon.
Oh. Ugh.
But,
Brandon Ayuk, there is he better than Brandon Ayuk? You got to give me Ayuk.
No, I'll take him over Ayuk and Bateman for sure.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yep, that's where I draw the line. I think he goes
better than Judy. Better than Judy too, right?
We'll see. I mean, quarterback play it's a game changer. So I mean, I think Judy honestly has more receiving yards than Cortland Sutton this year. I think Sutton's got him in the touchdown department, but I think Judy finishes with more catches and yards. So
Sutton's gonna get hurt. He already has a shoulder injury, and those things just don't.
Let's not throw that out there.
Sorry, he is. It's gonna happen.
I hope.
Anyways, okay, so I'll jump in on number 4. So number 4, I jumped around on my list. Okay, I hate backups. We talked about this. I hate backups. I hate backups with fashion. And honestly, I'll combine number 4 and number 5 here. I'll let you hit 2 at the end and do them polarizing.
Yeah.
I'm going to combine number 4 and number 5 here. I have 3 guys, but 2 are running backs, so they're the same thing. And then I have a guy that I hate with a passion where he's getting drafted, and it just doesn't make sense to me. So you have A.J. Dillon and Tony Pollard, which Pollard's fallen a little bit now that the stuff has come out in camp, which I'm totally okay with because I'm like, okay, you know what? If you're drafting Pollard in the 9th, you're fine. But you're not. Most people are not drafting Tony Pollard in the 9th. In fact, Tony Pollard's typically going around that Rashad Penny zone, right? The Chase Edmonds, Rashad Penny, which, I'm not a huge guy on Chase, but if you're sitting there and if you're drafting, Tony Pollard around Clyde, but if we're talking about A.J. Dillon...
Yeah, this one's a lot worse for me.
Oh my gosh. If you're talking about A.J. Dillon, he's getting drafted right now around Travis Etienne, around David Montgomery, around Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, which I know you talked about Dobbins, but if you're drafting him, he's in the same conversation as Breece Hall, which Breece Hall right now is running with the backups of the Jets, but you're sitting there, and, he's such just, if he hits, he hits. He was drafted where he was drafted for a reason.
Yep.
And you can't, A.J. Dillon will be a fantastic running back if Aaron Jones is out.
Mm-hmm.
But if he is in the game, A.J. Dillon to me is the equivalent of Kareem Hunt. A great running back, but he's maybe going to get 10 carries, 12 carries a game, and he's going to get you're lucky, you get 40 yards out of him, and you're lucky if you get a touchdown. If you're drafting that in round 5, round 4, round 6, anywhere in there, to me, smash wide receiver, hit that first, and then just grab a guy, even in round 8 or round 9, which as of right now, this is when he's going, is Dameon Pierce. Or grab a guy that's high upside like Pacheco, right, out of Kansas City. Grab a guy that's higher upside that you can grab. Even grab Cordell Patterson, in my opinion.
Or Robinson from the Commanders as well.
Yeah, or Brian Robinson, right? Grab a guy late round.
Yep.
And take a flyer rather than spend. I hate this idea of spending a high pick, a high valuable pick on a guy that's not even starting on his own team. I know that they came out and said 1A and 1A and Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. That's bullcrap to me. That doesn't make sense. And you can, unless you're playing A.J. Dillon at fullback, which doesn't matter at all anyways, it's what are they going to do? It's the same situation. It's worse, but it's the same thing that you said with Dobbins and Lamar, where Lamar's getting those rushing yards.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Jones, as great, everyone's saying, oh, he's a great receiver. He'll be the wide receiver 1 on this team. He's still a running back.
Yeah, there's no way.
And so ultimately, he's still going to get those carries. Aaron Jones is not going to disappear unless he gets hurt or completely falls off the wagon and says, hey, I'm 27, see ya, right? And just dies.
Yeah.
If he dies, then A.J. Dillon's going to get some carries.
Mm-hmm.
But until that day, you're seeing 10 to 12 carries, and you're drafting him in the 4th or 5th round? What is going on? To me, grab Kareem Hunt. Grab Kareem Hunt instead. He's a much better value, and I'm not a huge Kareem Hunt guy this year. I think, honestly, Cleveland might get pissed off that he demanded a trade, and you could see him just kind of get phased out of the offense.
Mm-hmm. Especially with Amari Cooper.
Or they hold on to him for trade day, and so they don't use him.
Yeah.
I think that could, but to me, Kareem Hunt's a way better value than guys like A.J. Dillon or Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
And then you go on the other route of I hate drafting backups. What are people doing with Jalen Waddle? I'm sorry. If you're going to... Okay, think about this. If you're going to sit there and take Tyreek Hill's value and throw it in the gutter because of Tua's weird arm, then you're going to have to take Waddles and throw it in the gutter too, because now he's the wide receiver 2 on his team, which we've already talked about wide receiver 2, but he's getting drafted above guys like Deontay Johnson, above guys like Brandon Cooks, above guys like Terry McLaurin. Mm-hmm. He's getting drafted around that Allen Robinson range, and we've already talked about Allen Robinson, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, if you're drafting a guy, even like a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown or DK Metcalf, who have terrible quarterback options, right? Or if you're not drafting like Juju before him, who I think is honestly just, that's kind of a shot in the dark. But you're drafting Jalen Waddle, but you're sitting there and you're going, I don't think Tyreek Hill's going to be as good because Tua's his quarterback. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yep.
Right? Because they're, in my opinion, they're very, very, very similar to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And the same statement that you made about Deontay Johnson is what I hold with Waddle last year, which is he commanded those targets because he was the only guy there. And now that Tyreek Hill is there, if you're going to be like, oh, well, they'll just throw slants to Waddle, well, then they'll just throw slants to Tyreek. Mm-hmm. Or, oh, well, Tyreek's going to attract so much attention. Okay, yeah, he is. If Tua throws to Waddle, though, then people are going to pay attention to him. Like, to me, if you're drafting him above team wide receiver 1s, volume is king, right? That's what we've learned this whole time. Volume is king. And if you're drafting a guy that's going to get, that goes from like 10 to 12 targets a game, which is what he was getting, to me, he goes from, in my opinion, and I personally don't even think he was like that earth-shattering last year. To me, he was on pace with Darnell Mooney, and they were the same kind of guy. They both had iffy quarterback play. They both were just getting fed targets because no one else was getting targets in that offense.
Right.
Now, Darnell's still that number 1 guy. Waddle's not. So I'm saying you got to put Waddle after Darnell Mooney there, and right now he's getting drafted so much higher. I mean, Darnell Mooney's ranked in Yahoo at 77, right around Marquise Brown and Michael Thomas, which I won't get into how undervalued those guys are. But I'd say you got to put Waddle under Thielen, honestly.
Wow.
Which Thielen's much older, but Thielen has that red zone. Waddle is a wide receiver 2 in that offense, and he has a very similar skill set to the guy who was the wide receiver 1, which doesn't set him apart.
Yeah. I think I'll start with Waddle. Going back to the beginning of what we talked about, your first team, I should say, the Bengals. I mean, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins last year were very good for fantasy, but we can't predict that again. And I think Joe Burrow, as most people would say, is better than Tua, and we don't even project him to support 2 wide receiver 1s. So why are we expecting Tyreek Hill to come over and Jalen Waddle to be better than he was last year? I mean, he was a rookie last year, but he's going to lose targets, and that's basically all he got last year. So I agree with that as well. I think it's crazy to be drafting Jalen Waddle that high. And if you think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 for that team, sure, but by what, 10 targets max? I mean, it's going to be...
Well, and then why would they have traded for Tyreek if they really believe that he was the wide receiver 1?
I can't project that, but I'm saying even if you do project him to be the number 1 wide receiver, it's not going to be by a wide margin like it was last year. There's just no way Tyreek is not going to be involved in that offense. So, I can't see drafting Waddle that high.
So do you put Waddle? Here's a question, because this is how low I see Waddle. Like, and people are going like we can put this on the board and I can get flamed for it forever. But I put him. I mean, I put him around Robert Woods, man.
Wow.
Like, I almost say, to me it's on the fence. This is a legitimate question of whether I would rather have Tyler Lockett or Jalen Waddle. Like, that's a legitimate question to me. And Tyler Lockett's getting drafted around Lazard, Godwin, Robert Woods, Russell Gage, Kadarius Toney, like those guys.
I think this is another reason. I know Chase Edmonds has been getting a lot of hype, but there's no way they can support 3 top fantasy options. I think they're going to sling the ball, and Chase Edmonds isn't going to do much. But I think Waddle averages about 6 targets, 7 targets a game still. Tyreek probably 9 or 10, and then there are no other mouths to feed in that offense. So I think he's still solid for fantasy, but yet again, he doesn't really have a red zone presence, and so it's tough as well. But I would definitely take a wide receiver one for a different team over him, like Deontay Johnson, still, who we talked about, and who I don't even really like that much. I would still rather have Deontay over him. And I had Waddle and Tyreek Hill last year, so there's no bias involved in this at all. I was actually very excited for Jalen Waddle coming into year 2, and then when I saw the news of Tyreek getting traded, it really shot him down my list. So that's tough. But moving on to your Cowboys and Green Bay Packers, or I guess just running back twos being overvalued. I think AJ Dillon is going to have a similar stat line to Melvin Gordon last year, and has the same amount of hype and value that Javonte did coming out of the draft last year, where they're expecting him to get 75-80% of the workload and be running the ball the majority of the time, and I just don't see that for AJ Dillon. I know they said Aaron Jones is going to be a good receiver and the wide receiver one for the team, which there's just no chance of that happening at all. There's a 0% chance. That makes no sense, but Aaron Jones is still here. I think AJ Dillon may get goal line work, which can help his floor, but honestly, I don't see this offense being as good as it's been in the past, 8 to 10 years since they've had Rodgers. They don't have a wide receiver one, obviously, if they think Aaron Jones is going to be the wide receiver one.
Lazard!
Yeah, I'm not sold on him. I know Aaron Rodgers had that coming back and forth with Devontae, but I'm not sold on Allen Lazard personally.
Yeah, go look at Devontae's stats before he got with he started really going crazy with Aaron Rodgers.
That is true.
That's true. His first few years, I told him saying, you can almost mark it down here. Don't do it yet, but Lazard could be the Devontae Adams.
The Packers are known for taking a while to develop their guys or let them loose, I guess. But Allen Lazard is not the same talent as Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams. He's not even in the ballpark. So
I know. I mean, he's not even the best receiver on that team. Sammy Watkins, man, 200 yards week 1.
I think it's possible Sammy Watkins is their number one, and they have that rookie. I forgot his name right now, but
Christian
talking
Watson,
about Aaron.
Oh, and Dobbs.
The other one, Dobbs or Dubs, however you say it. He's been talking him up, saying he's not getting the normal rookie treatment. So I don't know what that means, but I don't see him doing much either. So I do think AJ Dillon can get goal line work, but to be drafted where he's being drafted, he needs an Aaron Jones injury, and you just can't predict injuries. So I don't see him paying off.
Me neither. So what's your? I went 2 at a time. So what's your last 2? Go for it. Whichever one you want in what order, and they don't have to combine. Mine just kind of.
Yeah, that'd be tough to combine mine because I have some different positions. But number 4 on my list is David Montgomery. He's been talked about a little bit this offseason. I think the past 2 years he's been a lot of people's hearts. He's won some people some championships down the stretch, and I think this is the year that it stops. So no 3-peat for David Montgomery. I know he's got a pretty easy schedule, but I don't see that offense being very good. The Pro Football Focus just released their offensive line rankings for this year, and the Chicago Bears were. I'll just take a guess. Guess where the Bears were ranked this year.
30.
Lower.
32.
31, right in the middle. So
Hey.
last. They're not last, but they're very close. Which, if you didn't know, means they are one of the worst offensive lines in the league this year, which does not help your running back if he's trying to run behind that offensive line. So I think that's...
Yeah! One of the worst. One of the worst. One of the worst.
Also with, Darnell Mooney's been getting some praise out of camp, but on the other end, they've been saying that this Bears offense is looking terrible, which last year they looked terrible, so they're saying they're looking even worse than last year, which blows my mind. And also,
bring back the red rifle. Yeah.
Also, Khalil Herbert's been talked about. I know earlier in the year before he got injured, they were saying he might be starting to cut into his role and taking RB1 reps. And so I think it's possible there's a 50-50 split with this new regime. Dave Montgomery is just he's not going to pay off where he's at. He's being drafted, I believe, as the RB18 right now, which is above guys like Eli Mitchell, Travis Etienne, who you've already talked about, and Josh Jacobs. So I'm not high on Josh Jacobs, but I think Eli Mitchell and Travis Etienne are going to be well above him by the end of the year. They're on better offenses, which I mean the Jags offense is not very good, obviously, but the Bears they're going to be a lot worse. I predict so.
I don't buy it.
No?
I gotta I don't know if he'll make like top 12, but I think he's getting to me he's a very sexy or not. He's not sexy.
Yeah, he's been like that for a while.
Very unsexy, but I think that he's gonna go around that RB1, RB2. I don't. To me, I mean he's 25.
Yeah.
He's still only 25. Khalil Herbert's 24, right? So it's not like Khalil Herbert is this guy that's like this young upstart gonna take. I mean, he's good.
Yeah.
He's good, and he might have the Tariq Cohen position, right? Khalil Herbert might be the receiving back, but I think that you're gonna have Monty still put up 10 to 12 a game. I don't see. To me, there's no other viable option unless Justin Fields turns into Lamar Jackson and starts running like crazy.
Yeah.
To me, there's that offensive line is terrible, but there's no viable option. I don't know. I have him being adequately drafted.
Okay.
If not being a little underdrafted.
I think Khalil Herbert flashed a little bit last year whenever Montgomery got hurt, and there's been a lot of talks about Khalil Herbert being one of the guys in the Chicago Bears offense, and not a lot of hype around David Montgomery. So I really think this new coaching staff likes Khalil Herbert a little bit more, and so I think David Montgomery's still going to be their RB1, but Khalil Herbert's definitely going to cut into some of that workload, and if he gets goal line carries, David Montgomery's upside is very minimal with that offensive line.
So who's better, Montgomery or Gibby?
I think right now, I mean, they're in a similar situation. We'll have to see when week 1 comes around. I think a little bit of that Gibson talk is cheap, personally, but I think you still got to go Dave Montgomery with what's coming out, obviously.
You scared me there. You scared me for a second. I was like, is he about to go Gibby?
I think.
Wow!
But Gibson's ADP is also falling drastically right now in drafts, so I mean, he's not being drafted at the RB18 ahead of Eli Mitchell, Etienne, and Josh Jacobs. So some of that's baked into his ADP. But, I mean, would you rather have David Montgomery over those 3 guys that I named?
Maybe over Eli Mitchell. Just the San Francisco running situation always scares me. And Eli's been hurt. It's that kind of thing of he could either have, a 1,200-yard season, or he could literally have 200 yards and be phased out.
This is Trey Sermon's year, coming out of nowhere.
They'll sign someone drafted guy, and he'll just come in and be like, oh wow, or they'll have like Deion Sanders put on a mustache or something. But no, it's where I would kind of draw the line almost actually is like, to me Montgomery is on the same level as like Rashad Penny, where you're gonna draft him based off you're not drafting him off his ceiling. You're drafting him knowing that he's gonna play 6 weeks for you, and then he's gonna get supplanted or he's gonna get hurt and someone else is just gonna come in. Yeah. Which Ken Walker I think is gonna supplant Rashad Penny around as soon as week 6. Rashad Penny's a walking injury too, so it's all that, but you have vice versa. I think David Montgomery's also kind of a walking injury. He gets injured every year. He is looking a little bit slower. I do agree with that. I still if you're getting him around the Rashad Penny range, I do that.
Yeah.
But you're right. I wouldn't put him above like ETN or Josh Jacobs, especially now that Kenyon Drake's out.
I think the only upside with Montgomery is, like I said, the past 2 years they've had an easy schedule, which I don't believe has changed this year. I have to go back and see like the playoff schedule, but that's the only upside is somehow David Montgomery stays healthy all year. Khalil Herbert either gets injured or for some reason just doesn't play, which I don't predict happening. But if that's the case, then David Montgomery could be a league winner at the end of the year again because he's being drafted on the RB18. But I don't.
They play Detroit championship week.
He plays who?
They play Detroit championship.
There you go. I think Detroit might be a little sneaky this year, though. Aiden Hutchinson's looking pretty good if you've seen Hard Knocks. And I love Dan Campbell, so we'll see. They might be able
Dan Campbell's amazing. He's an American treasure.
Yeah, they're going to go after Dave Montgomery's kneecaps in the first half, and he probably won't play second half, so.
He's going to be like, I eat kneecaps. That's all they're going to do.
Yeah. All right.
Final one. What's your fifth? What's your final one?
Yeah, so I'm kind of surprised that you haven't done any QBs. I saw your list, like you said beforehand, so I thought I'd throw a QB in there, and somebody that you've been talking about a lot today.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yep.
Say it.
I'm sorry. Lamar
Say it.
Action Jackson.
The QB1. The QB1 overall, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The QB1 overall. All right. Well, then that just helps my point a little bit more. He's being drafted around the QB4 in ADP, which I don't think it's terrible. Part of this, I wanted to just throw a different position in there because we had just running backs and wide receivers. So you talk about his running ability, which is there, but last year he ranked 28th in passer rating with a clean pocket. I think last year proved that Baltimore just can't be a passing team because they didn't win very many games, and so I think Harbaugh's going to want to run the ball, which I know Lamar Jackson will get his, but I think he wants to run the ball with some of those running backs again. You know, like you said, they might sign some. This look that you're getting. I know you're waiting to pop off of me, but I think they could sign some veterans and, like you said, run them into the ground rather than running Lamar Jackson because he was injured a little bit last year, and I don't think they want to do that again. He also loses, like we said, his number one receiver in Hollywood Brown, which I think hurts him a little bit because Rashad Bateman's good, but I don't know if he's ready to be that number one receiver. I know they have Mark Andrews, and he's going to be solid, but I think they need a little bit more than that. And then I think he finishes just outside of the top 5, QB6, QB7 range, just with his rushing ability. I don't know if he runs for a lot of touchdowns. There's no way he repeats his MVP year, in my opinion. I don't think his passing has gotten any better, which he's got a solid floor rushing wise, but passing I think is just the thing that is holding him back. So I think he's around 20 points per game this year. He's got one of the safest floors, but I don't think he has a ceiling to be a top 4 QB this year.
So who do you put above him?
I think Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I'm a big Jalen Hurts believer this year. I don't know if I would put him there. I would put him around Lamar. I think he's got more weapons offensively to throw the ball to. So we'll see if Jalen Hurts can be a better passer this year. But he's got a similar floor rushing the ball. I think if Tom Brady plays like he did last year, you got to put Tom Brady above him. Who else? I know I'm forgetting somebody. Justin Herbert. I think you got to put Justin Herbert above him, and then Lamar's the next.
Put Kyler above him.
I think Kyler, Lamar, and Jalen Hurts are all in the same category. I think
Dak Prescott.
No, because like you said, that value in rushing for a quarterback is just too good. Dak lost to Amari Cooper, and I don't think that offense is going to be as good this year. So I think Jalen Hurts and Lamar are similar in their rushing capability. I don't think Kyler will run the ball as much this year, and I don't think he'll run for as many touchdowns. So I'd still put Lamar above him, but Lamar and Jalen Hurts, QB 6 and 7.
You're talking bad about the QB1, man. QB1. It's going to be QB1 far and away.
Wow.
The QB1.
Okay.
Because Okay, to your point, they lost Marquise Brown.
Yep.
And what did they? I mean, they didn't add much.
They didn't. I didn't think they added anything.
But the thing is, they're negotiating this. I mean, they want him there a long time. But look at this contract negotiation, right? So Lamar's fighting for everything guaranteed, and he doesn't have a contract yet. So you got to analyze what that means about the team. The team wants him. That's, I mean, first and foremost, the team wants him. The team loves to utilize him. I mean, they've built their entire scheme around him. Tyler Huntley is literally like him 2.0. I mean, like, they literally just created another Lamar Jackson, right? So they created an entire scheme around him. And then he's trying to get everything guaranteed, and they haven't given it to him yet as of August 25th.
Mm-hmm.
There's a slight chance that they almost, Zeke Elliott this thing and try to run him into the ground. If they're being hesitant on giving, guaranteed money, like the Cardinals were not, and you've seen the Cardinals throw the money at Kyler Murray and then say, hey, you know what? It's all guaranteed. Have fun, right? And he's going and doing his stuff, but they're not rushing him as much. I think Lamar could legitimately rush for 1150 this year.
1,100 yards.
1150.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I think you have, and I think Lamar's going to pass for at least 200 to 250 a game. You throw that in there. I mean, I'm saying that he's going to be, and he's not the best quarterback in the league, far and away. In my opinion, Patrick Mahomes, right? Josh Allen's up there too. Tom Brady, obviously, like Aaron Rodgers, all those guys, amazing. But in fantasy, rushing is king when it comes to quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And I think my other thing with Josh Allen is I think they're going to be a little bit safer with him. He's going to get the goal line touchdowns at rushing.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to rush as heavily. And I think what's going to happen, I mean, you saw them invest in James Cook, right? They kept Zach Moss. They kept Devin Singletary.
Right.
They have these running backs that they're now building around him. I think he's QB3. I think Pat, QB2. And I think Lamar, by a good, solid, depending on your scoring system, if you have any bonuses, but by a good, solid 20 to 30 points, Lamar Jackson.
Wow. I think what you said is a little bit contradictory, where you think that they want him, but they're going to run him to the ground. I think if you want your franchise quarterback, you're going to protect him. They're not going to try to injure him. And I think...
Oh, no, they won't try to injure him. I think they know their style of play. And if he gets hurt, it's because of the way they play.
Yeah, I think...
But he's also 25?
Yeah, somewhere on there.
He's still an ascending quarterback.
That's true. I agree. I think...
He's 25.
I just...
Same age as Joe Burrow, man.
With his injury, that's good.
Younger than Patrick Mahomes. Same age as Kyler Murray. Like, younger than Josh Allen. Like, he's still getting better.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I hope so, because his passing is still terrible.
I think it's better than people. They just haven't had great wide receivers.
And they got worse at wide receiver this year, so I think that's going to be a big issue. Mark Andrews is not going to be able to carry that team. But no, I think with him getting injured last year and I know Tyler Huntley is Lamar 2.0, whatever you want to call him, but he's not a starting capable quarterback. I think they're going to try to protect him this year, and I'm sure he'll get probably 600 rushing yards this year and a few rushing touchdowns. But I don't think they're going to want to run the ball with him. I think it's going to be a lot of play action like they normally do, having him roll out of the pocket. But there's no way he has 1,100 rushing yards this year.
1150.
There's no way he has 1,000 rushing yards this year.
Oh, okay. We'll settle a bet here. We'll figure out what this bet's gonna be.
Okay.
If he gets over 1,000 rushing yards or not.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll take that.
We'll create a season bet going on.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Leave in the comment section.
Yeah. Well, great. All right. So those are our overrated players. literally, dude, this was a blast. I know, we talked. I talked your ear off for a good long. I get passionate about
Oh
this
yeah,
stuff.
I do too. So that's
But
good.
that's how we're gonna do it, right?
Of
So,
course.
I mean, and here's the thing, right? Everything we said today, including our contradictory stuff, is going to be completely 100% true. There's nothing that we said that was wrong.
Right.
If you took our advice, you're welcome.
Just remember,
Because literally,
I'm the only one that has a championship, so take that into account.
this has been Loudly Mistaken. I'm Brayden Welch.
And I'm
Gavin.
Clean. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And we're signing off.
Yep.
So thanks for listening. We'll be back.